Imagine a world where children who should be playing with toys and learning in school are instead plotting their next murder. James Fairweather grew up in Essex, a county in the UK, and it wasn't long before he made a dark mark on his hometown. As a young teenager, he began his criminal journey with a robbery at a local shop. Armed with a knife, he terrified the shopkeeper and made off with whatever he could grab. This event wasn't just a one-off prank. It was a start of something far grimmer. Fairweather would often boast about his deeds to classmates, seemingly proud of his growing notoriety. At the shockingly young age of 15, James Fairweather committed his first murder. One fateful night in March 2014, he encountered James Atfield, a father of 5, laying on the grass at Castle Park. Atfield, somewhat vulnerable after a night out, became Fairweather's first victim. In a brutal attack, Fairweather stabbed him 102 times. Despite being found alive, Atfield succumbed to his injuries, and the paramedics couldn't save him. Just a few months later, Fairweather struck again. This time, his victim was Nahid Almina, a 31-year-old university student. While she was walking along the Sallery Brook Trail, Fairweather attacked and stabbed her 16 times, including in both eyes, a chilling detail that Fairweather later chillingly justified by saying he did it so she could not see evil. During his trial and various evaluations, Fairweather claimed that he was driven by voices in his head. These weren't just whispers, they were demands. He described them as commanding him to kill and even laughing as he carried out the attacks. This aspect of his crimes brings up significant concerns about his mental health and whether he truly understood the gravity of his actions or was driven by uncontrollable psychological disturbances. Fairweather's reign of terror ended when he was caught by police, thanks in part to a vigilant local woman who noticed him acting suspiciously near the crime scene. During his arrest, he was found with a knife and rubber gloves, prepared to strike again. In April 2016, at 17, he faced the consequences of his horrifying actions. The court sentenced him to life imprisonment with a minimum of 27 years to be served before he was eligible for parole. His case was a stark reminder of how deeply disturbing the mind of a young killer could be, and it left the community and the nation grappling with many unsettling questions. Harvey Miguel Robinson, the adolescent predator. His criminal activities began when he was just a teenager living in Pennsylvania, USA. His earlier crimes were violent and escalated quickly, setting a disturbing pattern. At 17, Robinson started to unleash his rage in a way that shocked everyone around him. His journey into crime started with burglary, but soon took a horrifying turn into more violent act. Robinson's killing spree began in 1992, with his first victim being 29-year-old Joan Burkhart. He initially burglarized her home and then shockingly returned the next day to rape and murder her. The following year, he claimed the life of 15-year-old Charlotte Schmoyer, a newspaper carrier who went missing while on her route. Her body was later found buried under a pile of logs, and it was discovered that she had been stabbed 122 times and her throat slashed. His violent impulses didn't stop there. Robinson also attacked a 5-year-old girl and attempted to kill her. Thankfully, she survived. The brutality of these murders, particularly their random nature and the extreme violence used against his victims, struck fear into the local community. Robinson left few survivors, but those who did survive played a crucial role in his capture. One such survivor, Denise Samcali, after breaking into her home and attacking her, Robinson was scared away by her screams, which alerted neighbors. His last known victim was Jessica Jean Fortney, whom he raped and strangled. Unbeknownst to Robinson, Fortney's granddaughter witnessed the attack and was able to give a detailed description to the police. His capture came when he audaciously returned to Sam Callie's house to finish his earlier attempted murder, not knowing that the police were waiting for him. A dramatic shootout ensued, and Robinson, wounded, fled only to be arrested at a hospital. Amarjit Sadeh, the world's youngest killer. Imagine a child, barely old enough to understand the complexities of the world, committing a crime as grave as murder. Amarjit Sadeh, born in a village in Bahir, India, holds the grim title of the world's youngest killer. His first alleged murder occurred when he was just 7 years old. It's hard to grasp the reality of such a young child embarking on such a dark path. Amarjeet's series of alleged murders is chilling, primarily because the victims were closely related to him. His first victim was his cousin, a 6-year-old girl. Not long after, he shockingly went on to kill his own sister, who was only 8 months old at the time. These murders are difficult to comprehend, given the tender ages of both the perpetrator and the victims. The final alleged murder before his apprehension involved a neighbor's baby, a 6-month-old girl named Khushbu, whom he reportedly killed after striking her with a stone. The details of these cases are particularly horrifying because of Amarjeet's age and his choice of victims, innocent children within his immediate relational circle. The handling of Amarjeet's case was significantly influenced by the cultural and legal frameworks in place in India. In rural India, where community ties are strong and mental health issues are often misunderstood, Amarjeet's actions were initially kept hidden by his family and other villagers, perhaps out of disbelief, shame, or fear of social ostracism. Legally, Indian law stipulates that a child under the age of 7 cannot be tried for a crime, and those aged between 7 and 12 must be proven to have the maturity to understand the nature and consequences of their action at the time the crime was committed. Amarjeet's age, therefore, placed him in a sensitive bracket where the law wrestles with notions of culpability and rehabilitation. Following his arrest, Amarjeet was placed in a juvenile remand home, as Indian law prohibits the sentencing of minors to prison or death. Reports suggest that he received some form of psychological evaluation and treatment, although specific details are sparse and shrouded in privacy due to his age. He was kept in solitary confinement for a considerable period, which raises additional questions about the impact on his mental and emotional development. As Amarjeet grew older, he remained in the remand home until he turned 18. The secrecy surrounding his life post-detention is dense, largely due to legal protections afforded to minors. As of now, Amarjeet would be in his mid-20s, but his current whereabouts and conditions are largely unknown. This veil of secrecy maintains a societal protection, but also adds to the mystique and unresolved nature of his early life's shocking events. Craig Price, the teenage terror. Even before he was a teenager, Price was already breaking into homes, stealing, and causing trouble in his neighborhood in Warwick, Rhode Island. These early crimes were mostly burglaries and petty thefts, but they were a clear warning sign of his capability to escalate to more serious offenses. The neighborhood knew him as a troublemaker, yet no one could have predicted just how far he would go. Craig Price transformed from a petty criminal to a notorious murderer by the age of 13. His first known murder occurred in 1987 when he broke into the home of 27-year-old Rebecca Spencer and brutally stabbed her 58 times, a gruesome act committed just steps from his own home. The community was shocked and terrified, but the case went cold, with no suspects in sight. Price, still a child, walked free. 2 years later, his violent impulses resurfaced. Over a single bloody weekend in 1989, Price, then 15, claimed the lives of 3 more neighbors, 39-year-old Joan Heaton and her 2 daughters, 10-year-old Jennifer and 8-year-old Melissa. The ferocity of these attacks was chilling. Joan was stabbed 57 times, Jennifer 62 times, and Melissa suffered from over 30 stab wounds and a crushed skull. The brutal nature of these killings, combined with Price's young age, sent ripples of horror throughout the nation. Craig Price's arrest later that year brought some relief to the community, but also exposed significant gaps in the juvenile justice system. Initially, because he was tried as a minor, the law stated he would be released and his criminal record sealed by the age of 21. This potential outcome caused an uproar and led to significant changes in the state's laws. Rhode Island amended its statutes to allow juveniles to be tried as adults for serious crimes such as murder, although these changes couldn't be applied retroactively to Price. During his trial and the legal battles that followed, the state and the public grappled with the complex issues of juvenile justice, punishment, and rehabilitation. Despite the original juvenile sentencing, Price has remained in prison well past his 21st birthday due to a series of additional charges incurred while incarcerated. His behavior behind bars has been problematic, marked by assault, extortion, and contraband possession. At one point, Price was charged with criminal contempt for refusing to take a psychological test and faced accusations of threatening a correction officer. These incidents led to additional sentences that have kept him in prison, extending his stay by decades. Currently, his behavior and additional charges have made it unlikely that he will be granted parole anytime soon, if at all. Craig Price's case remains one of the most disturbing examples of juvenile crime in the United States. It highlights not only the potential for extreme violence in young offenders, but also the challenges the legal system faces in dealing with such young individuals who commit heinous crimes. The community, still haunted by the memories of his rampage, continues to deal with the aftermath, and the debates over juvenile justice inspired by this case persist in legal and ethical discussions across the country. So what are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments below.